The salt wind off the Pacific tasted of iron the first time Evelyn Harper ever saw it, in 1944, when she was 7 and clutching her mother's hand on the Atlantic City pier. Her father had shipped out 2 weeks earlier on a destroyer bound for Guadalcanal, and the ocean looked endless and hungry. Evelyn asked if it went all the way to Daddy. Her mother said yes, then cried into a handkerchief stitched with tiny anchors. Evelyn decided the sea was a road, and one day she would walk it to bring him home. She never did. The telegram arrived on a Tuesday in 1945. Missing. Presumed lost. Her mother stopped speaking for 3 days. On the 4th, she sold the boarding house, packed 2 suitcases, and moved them to Redondo Beach, California. Because the Pacific was the last place her husband had been alive, Evelyn learned to swim before she could spell her last name at 12. She stole a neighbor's longboard and paddled past the breakwater, lying flat, while the waves rocked her like a cradle. The ocean didn't care that her father was gone. It only asked her to keep breathing. By 16, she was the best surfer in Hermosa Beach. Girl or boy college scouts came with scholarships. She turned them down. "I'm not leaving the water," she told the UCLA coach. Instead, she enrolled in nursing school at Harbor General, paid for by her mother's cannery wages and Evelyn's own stubbornness. In 1958, she married Walter Harper, a Navy machinist with laugh lines and a Purple Heart from Korea. They bought a cracked foundation house in Torrance, with a view of the Chevron refinery. Evelyn painted the kitchen violet because it was the color of the wildflowers her father used to pick. Walter deployed twice. Evelyn worked trauma surgery, stitching boys who looked like her father's ghost. In 1967, their daughter Marlene was born with Walter's eyes and Evelyn's chin. In 1972, Walter retired from the Navy and took a job at the Long Beach shipyard. They saved every penny, every overtime check, every Christmas bonus. In 1987, Walter's heart gave out on a Tuesday. Same day the telegram had come. 42 years earlier he was 55, Evelyn was 50. She sold the Torrance house, cashed Walter's life insurance, and in 1992, paid cash for a narrow glass and cedar house on a Malibu cliff, 4 bedrooms, a deck cantilevered over the waves like a dare. The realtor said it was overpriced. Evelyn said the ocean was worth it. She named it Violet's Watch, after the wildflowers and the cracked blue teacup she'd bought for a nickel in 1958. The cup had a hairline fracture through a painted violet. Walter had called it imperfect. Evelyn said imperfect things lasted longer. She kept it on every windowsill of every house they ever lived in. Now it sat on the deck rail of Violet's Watch, catching sunsets the color of bruises. Marlene married young, divorced younger, and moved to Phoenix with a man who sold swimming pools. In 1987, she gave birth to Connor James Sinclair. Evelyn flew to Phoenix for the delivery, held the red-faced baby, and promised the same thing her mother had promised her: the ocean is a road. I'll always be at the end of it. Marlene died in 2000 of ovarian cancer, stage 4. Connor was 12. Evelyn flew to Phoenix again, this time for the funeral. Connor clung to her skirt like seaweed. She brought him to Malibu for summers, taught him tide charts, waxing boards, spotting rip. He called her Aunt Evie and slept in the bedroom with violet curtains. When he turned 18, she paid for his first year at UCLA. When he graduated in hospitality management, she gave him the spare keys to Violet's Watch. "Use it when I'm gone," she said. Connor's smile was quicksilver. "You're not going anywhere." He was 28 in 2015, working concierge at a boutique hotel in Santa Monica. He showed up with Prosecco and a business plan. "Airbnb's the future. Aunt Evie, your place could pull 10 grand a weekend. I'll handle every single bookings, maintenance, you just cash the checks." Evelyn was 78. Her hip ached on damp mornings. The idea of strangers in her house made her skin crawl. But Connor's eyes were the same tide pool green as Walter's. She said yes. The first summer was seamless. Connor installed keyless entry, hired cleaners, sent Evelyn a monthly deposit labeled VR income. The first check was $6,400. She folded it into the blue teacup and told herself this was modern love, helping without hovering. By 2018, the deposits were $12,000 a month. Connor upgraded the kitchen quartz counters, sub-zero fridge, wine cooler she never opened. He replaced her driftwood furniture with white sofas she was afraid to sit on. He installed a Ring camera above the front door for security. Evelyn asked why the lens pointed at the deck chairs. Connor said it was for guest reviews. She let it go. She let a lot of things go. March 17, 2020, Evelyn was 7, pruning the bougainvillea that climbed the west railing, purple blossoms like Marlon's favorite scarf when Her left foot slipped on wet tick. She remembers the sky flipping, the crack of her hip against the outdoor shower, seagulls screaming like sirens, then nothing. She woke in Cedar Sinai with Connor holding her hand, and a doctor explaining surgical pins, Rahab, age-related fragility. Connor's eyes were red. He kept saying, "I should have been there." Evelyn wanted to tell him she'd been alone on that deck for 30 years and managed fine. But the morphine made her tongue thick. They released her after 9 days to Sunset Palms, assisted living in Culver City. Connor drove her in the Bronco, her surfboard still strapped to the roof like a flag of surrender. The center smelled of bleach and canned peas. Her room overlooked a parking lot. Connor kissed her forehead and promised to bring her home in 6 weeks. He never did. The first month, the physical therapist was kind. Evelyn relearned how to walk with a walker, then a cane, then nothing at all. Her hip healed clean. The doctor said she was a medical miracle. Connor visited every Sunday with In-N-Out burgers and updates. Bougainvillea, thriving cleaners. Deep cleaned for summer. Deposits up 40% thanks to Instagram influencers. He never brought her keys. The second month the visits slowed. Connor texted, "Busy season, love you." The social worker mentioned a family care plan. Evelyn asked to see it. The social worker looked uncomfortable and said Connor had power of attorney for healthcare and finances. Evelyn laughed until it turned into a cough. She had never signed anything. She asked for her phone. They said Connor had it for safekeeping. She asked for her mail. They said it was forwarded to a P.O. box. She asked for her lawyer. They said Connor was handling everything. On the 93rd day, a new nurse named Mary's tattoos of roses and rosaries wheeled Evelyn to the courtyard for fresh air. Evelyn stared at the bougainvillea-less sky and said, "I think my nephew's stealing my house." Marisol didn't flinch. "My abuela had the same thing happen. You want out? We get you out." That night, Marisol smuggled in a burner phone from the 7-Eleven across the street. Evelyn's fingers shook as she dialed Ruth Goldstein, Walter's old estate attorney, now 83 and retired to a condo in Century City. Ruth answered on the second ring, voice like a foghorn. "Evie Harper, I thought you were dead." "Not yet," Evelyn said, "but they're trying." Ruth arrived the next morning in a powder blue pantsuit and orthopedic sneakers, carrying a briefcase older than Marisol. She took one look at the care plant signed Evelyn M. Harper in Connor's looping scroll and snorted. "This is forgery. So clumsy a toddler could spot it. We're leaving now." The escape was less dramatic than Evelyn expected. Ruth flashed her bar card, threatened Adult Protective Services, and wheeled Evelyn out the front door while the administrator stammered about discharge protocols. Marisol slipped Evelyn her real phone fully charged, wrapped in a plastic bag with the blue teacup. Connor had never even opened the teacup. In Ruth's Cadillac, Evelyn opened the banking app for the first time in 15 months. Her primary checking account, where the Airbnb deposits landed, was at $8,742. A second account, Violet's Watch LLC, had $312,000. Connor's name was the only signer. Evelyn's name was listed as manager with no access. Ruth drove straight to the LA County Recorder's office in Norwalk. The quitclaim deed, transferring Violet's Watch from Evelyn to the LLC, was recorded 6 weeks after her fall signature, Evelyn M. Harper, witnessed by Connor and a notary named Brittany Sinclair, Connor's fiancée, an Instagram model with 14 million followers and a lash extension empire. Evelyn stared at the looping forgery until the letters blurred. "He planned this while I was in surgery." Ruth's eyes were flint. "We're not just getting your house back, darling, we're salting the earth." They started small. Ruth filed an emergency list pendants, clouding the title so no bank would touch it. She hired a forensic accountant named Diego, who traced every Airbnb booking, every cleaning fee, every bottle of Veuve charged to guests. Total revenue since the forgery, $1.87,000. Evelyn opened a new account at a credit union in Redondo Beach, transferred the $8,742, and froze every card Connor had ever linked to her name. Connor noticed on a Thursday. He called the rehab center in a panic. They told him Evelyn had eloped. He drove to Violet's Watch and found the locks changed, the ring camera disabled, a new sign on the gate, "Private property, trespassers will be prosecuted." He left 17 voicemails, each more frantic. Evelyn listened to them in Ruth's guest room, sipping tea from the blue teacup. Connor's voice cracked on the last one. "Aunt Evie, the wedding's in 2 weeks. Brittany's booked the whole weekend. We need the house." Evelyn smiled for the first time in months. Perfect. The wedding was set for Saturday, June 18, 2022. Brittany had tagged every sponsor. #Sinclair Jenkins Malibu, #LaShondlove, Hashtag Oceanfront Ido. The buyout was $28,000 for 3 nights. Non-refundable. Connor had upgraded the deck with acrylic ghost chairs, a floral arch of orchids flown in from Hawaii, a champagne wall spelling C&B in Swarovski crystals. The guest list, 180, including a tech influencer who'd promised a drone reel, a pop singer for the first dance, a photographer from Vogue. Evelyn booked the house herself on Thursday night, using the alias Violet Harper, and a prepaid visa. The confirmation email pinged Connor's phone at 2:14 a.m. Welcome to your oceanfront paradise. Early check-in approved for Friday, 12 p.m. Connor assumed it was a glitch. He was too busy to check. Friday, 11:47 a.m. Evelyn arrived in the Bronco. Surfboard still on the roof. Ruth in the passenger seat, clutching a thermos of coffee and a stack of legal documents behind them, an unmarked sheriff's SUV, and a tow truck from Redondo Beach PD. Evelyn wore white linen pants, a navy blazer with her old nursing pins, and the straw hat Walter bought her in Honolulu in 1972. Her cane was more for show. The hip had healed stronger than before. The cleaners, 2 women Connor hired from TaskRabbit, were vacuuming the great room. When Evelyn walked in, they froze, mourning. Ladies, Evelyn said, I'm the owner, you're done for the day. One cleaner recognized her from old photos on the fridge. Ms. Harper, we thought. Common mistake. Evelyn handed them each a $100 bill. Take the afternoon off. Tell your friends the listing's canceled. By noon, the tow truck had blocked the driveway. The sheriff's deputies, Sergeant Lopez and Officer Kim, posted no trespassing signs and set up a perimeter. Ruth unfolded a portable table on the deck and laid out the forged deed, the list pendants, the bank statements, and a blank photo of Connor's signature next to Evelyn's real one. A court reporter arrived to transcribe everything. Connor showed up at 1:15 p.m. in a white tuxedo t-shirt and board shorts, hair gelled like a boy band. Brittany trailed behind in a silk robe, lash extensions fluttering like trapped moths. A U-Haul full of floral arrangements idled at the gate. Aunt Evie. Connor's voice cracked. What the hell? Evelyn stood on the deck, wind whipping her hat brim. Language. Connor, there are ladies present. Brittany shrieked. This is our venue. We have a contract. Ruth held up the Airbnb printout. Actually, you have a contract with an LLC that no longer exists. The property reverts to Miss Harper. She checked her watch. 12 p.m. today. Connor tried to push past Sergeant Lopez. Lopez caught his arm. Sir, step back or you're under arrest. The florist arrived next, then the caterer, then the pop singer's manager. Each was turned away. The drone guy tried to launch from the beach. Officer Kim confiscated the equipment for airspace violation by 2:30 p.m. A crowd of cancelled vendors and confused guests gathered on PCA, live streaming the chaos. Hashtag Malibu Meltdown trended in LA within the hour. Brittany's meltdown was operatic. She called Connor's phone from the gate cam. Fix this, or the wedding's off. Connor begged Evelyn on his knees in the sand. I'll pay you back. I'll sign anything, please. Evelyn looked down at him the way she once looked at interns who dropped suture needles. You'll pay me back with interest and you'll do it in court. The final blow came at 4 p.m. when Diego, the accountant, arrived with a cease from the California Bureau of Real Estate. Connor's license was suspended pending investigation. Brit, sponsor a luxury lash. CR. Her mid-live stream. The orchids wilted in the U-Haul. Evelyn spent the night in her own bed for the first time in 15 months. She woke at 5:30 a.m., made coffee in the French press Walter bought in Marseille, and carried the blue teacup to the deck. The ocean was the color of gun. Just like D-Day in Connor's imagination, she poured a splash of coffee into the sand. For Marlene, she said, and for every woman who ever trusted the wrong boy. The fallout was swift. Connor and Brittany postponed the wedding indefinitely. Brittany moved back to her parents' condo in Irvine and pivoted to teeth-whitening strips. Connor faced felony fraud, forgery, and elder abuse charges. The DA offered a plea, 5 years probation, $12 million restitution, and 500 hours of community service at a senior center. He took it. Evelyn turned Violet's watch into a nonprofit retreat for elderly abuse survivors. The white sofas were replaced with Adirondack chairs painted every color of sunset. The wine cooler became a lending library. The Ring camera was donated to a women's shelter every morning at 6 a.m. Evelyn led a swim for residents, some in wheelchairs, some with walkers, all in the water up to their necks, laughing like children. The blue teacup sits on the kitchen windowsill again. Crack and all tourists still drive by and take photos, but now the sign reads, Violet's Watch, a safe harbor. Connor's old Airbnb listing is gone, but the reviews live on in screenshots. Host cancelled last-minute worst experience ever. Evelyn printed the best ones on canvas and hung them in the guest bath. Some evenings, when the tide is low and the dolphins arc through the kelp, Evelyn stands on the deck in Walter's old fishing sweater and talks to the ocean the way she once talked to him. She tells it about the boy who thought he could steal her. Sunset, she tells it about the women who now sleep in her guest rooms. Healing from their own conners, she tells it she is 81 and has never felt younger. The ocean listens, it always has.